thanks for the really warm welcome. And I woke up this morning and I was genuinely excited to come and share this afternoon.
Amen.
Young people, that was incredible. Thank you. My wife sent her greetings. She couldn't make it today. We have 3 daughters. Unfortunately, they couldn't make it today either. My oldest is 20, I have a 19-year-old and a 14-year-old.
Kenza nung chung ka na in som ni som na ko le som na kum le in casino in na ho zo sing reading kan bol na hi kam zo ko na hi atin hi.
When my oldest was just 3 years old and my youngest was 18 months old, we left Melbourne and we moved our lives to Thailand, to Bangkok.
Kaza nung kum chung ma hi a chung ke ho Thailand na mission tin kan na che na hi kan ki hin do na hi.
And for the first 15 years, or for the next 15 years, that's in Bangkok is where we raised our children.
Eji kum som le kum nga ka ji wa ke pa na kum som le kum nga su su Bangkok wa ka za te ho ka sai ni sa na mo na hi hi.
And so I can appreciate that relocating our lives into a different culture can be complicated.
Tunin mun choma chi a culture choma boi ga man hi a boi ma ma ji ti yang ka chi tho ni hi.
Now if I was wearing this in this outfit, this black shirt, black pants in Thailand, you may well be aware that I would be going to a funeral.
Dunia mun avon iza kaya chuma pana ngoi chen ya avon ka ke a ka che na ni le Thailand na chu chi o ma ji ni ka hi ti na hi.
But here in Melbourne, especially in winter, we like to think of it as it's quite fashionable.
Tua winter Melbourne I want to the confession a ka ke a ti ni.
Relocating and living in different cultures can be difficult, can't it?
E nam chung khat an le pau za chung a chon an da chung kho ho ko mai ke man cha tin a ha sat dan ne he tin ka ta san ni.
So let me first acknowledge that for most of the adults here, that has been your journey to discover what it means to live in Australia and to be an Australian.
Ka sei to mun khat tu ni ai la ba ti ho cha to zo se him nam chung ma e ho lu a sei ma ba cho ta be a chung be zum da na hi hi bin a sat tin ka he ni.
I'm sure there's moments where you're like, I have no idea what is happening in this culture or society.
Jeju ke ma ni pula ya phat ma sa ai ho chai culture ka he kha lu na ka na tau ma na ni ka ta san ni.
But I also want to say what a joy it is to have the Chin people, Thodo, to be a part of Australian culture.
Ye tu khat ka se be no tu ka ki hwa na khat chu tu ni a no mo zo si a tha do chin te mo zo si dong chla ya pha na Australia pha na hi the na ho Australia nu the na ho yi ka welcome ni ki hon ka ki pa ni.
I extend that personally, but I also say on behalf of Baptist Mission Australia.
Australia Baptist Mission than hin song ke ma na ka se do ka pom do ni.
We welcome and we need your friendship.
Yo and namo welcome the all into namo regular form pin no kan ni.
Australia needs Thodo people to shape us into what God is wanting.
Australia mi te ho in te ho tha do mi te ho Australia mi te ho nei ko ni ko pati a de se ni.
So we're not asking you to reject your country of origin, your practices, cultural practices. Come and share them with us.
Nó ho in na chen na gam ba na ho chon dan te ho zo si ki ho share ni ko pi pin.
And Australia also has, I'm sure, some practices and ways of being that I'm sure you're happy to adopt and embrace as part of your way of life as well.
Nam ho awai amma bo Australia te hon zum te hon awai phep khat zum ka ni cho zo se no no na cho ni de ka de de ni
It grows our understanding of who God is, what God is doing in the world, and how we're invited to be.
he cha chun pa chin ke ho zo se le se pum pia hin na na hi na le ke ho ka hi na bo cha ba I chi khom na pa chin ai um pi na pa chin no ya im khom na that sa na hi
Baptist Mission Australia has a long history with the Mizoram Baptist Church.
Baptist Australia hi ho in pi ni mang tia he de Mizoram Baptist Church so pita ke roi kom na ka ni se hi
We have an MOU with Mizoram Baptist Church, and as recently as this year have sent money to Mizoram Baptist Convention to support IDP, internally displaced people who are facing crisis and humanitarian needs.
Mizoram gama na India Manipur Mizoram ma poi na ne ho zo si a poi na ho zo si a ni ama ho ni ta ki chon pe ho la sunga gal zam ni na poi na hasan ne ho zo si ki tu pi na ning chun ki ho in chi Mizoram convention to ka tong ho ni da ko ni sula pa in zong ana ki support ni
Currently that looks like the purchase of medical supplies for internally displaced people who are just struggling with health issues, purchasing of water and humanitarian.
Kulaya ha sa ho tui hian lam lo da a hian lam ti zong le e tam khana panam khana ha sa na ya ne ke chau ho ga la to ya ne ke chau ho cho di na ke ho in lo da ai cho nan tui ma ye la cha cho da di na sum la ba kana pang ni
My good friend Rema, who is from Mizoram himself and works for Baptist Mission Australia and now currently living in New Delhi, in December last year ran a trauma counselling training for pastors from Manipur, from Mizoram region, so that they can be equipped to work with people who are experiencing trauma.
Tua lung chim la ma atong kha theu ga la tul ja a kha kha ki ai ta ki dong tu ja a lung chim boi na nei ho ke tu pi na di na kol gam le chi mane pura ho ke loi khom alam kai kha tu ani bin ama chun te bonga hi e chi mi chun la ma tu dei lam kai ne hi
So our history with the region of northeast India goes back many years, and we truly value the relationship and the friendship that we have with our friends from Manipur, Mizoram and the Chin people.
Yo in Mizoram le Manipur mi te ho so ni dai ka ne ki hen cho zu so man tam ka sama ma sing ne hi
I want to share a couple of little stories today.
tu ni in cho ka na to lao ba story kha den ka si ka pom lo ni na ho ko
When I relocated my life with my family to Bangkok, we lived in what's called a slum community.
Yo slum community ke ti a chu ke le ka in su mi pa che na ka to ani Bangkok ka na zo da ka na um ve ne hi
A slum community of about 100,000 people living in a really small area, about 2 square kilometres.
e si kilometer ni ta bang hi kam now chi a kun chu ko chu gam ta be no
When a lot of people are forced to live together in those sort of conditions, there's a lot of social problems.
mi tam ta mun yau cha ai ta hai a kun a long chai ta ti to mai ke ti ngai le ta mun boi na ang si ne hi
Which results, I guess, in people living and struggling with the issues of poverty.
ela chu mi ang ta ma mun ne ba chu e ta mun din na mun tin ba le ni kam zoi vai chan na in ku amang tin hi
We would open our front door in the mornings and sometimes there was a stray dog sleeping on our doorstep.
hai be tin la zika ma ta ko ni banai hum do a hi de ui cha gam a ku nei lo anei lo ui cha ho mai an hu mo den ke mu sin hi
But sometimes, tragically, it was a child.
hai be tin la hi de no mo ta ka tu yu chung de cha bang nei lo pa ni ko ni mai an ke ko no hom sin hi
Children without parents or guardians to take proper care of.
Bởi mà chán ai biết lúc đến những tàu giá để hồ in mai ăn cầm gì
We would step over the dog, we would work our way around the child and make our way to the motorcycle where I'd take the girls, I'd use the motorcycle to take the girls to school.
Hạt bên đây mà hay là hiện chỉ quy trào cho các chọn kiểu gì vậy, chấp họ cho các bùi đồ gì vậy, chỉ tiếng Anh chấp họ cho school làm họ đi nào, mà tôi sai vào các nhà muốn các họ đi cùng nó gì này.
On our way to the motorbike, we'd pass a group of young men who'd been up all night drinking.
Ấy chứ, cả là điều muốn các bộ là điều muốn các mà sang mà cho nên bây các con bà gì học chủ giang các bạn kia du không gì nào, không nó của các con bà gì này.
They had no work to go to, they had no purpose.
Ama đi mà hình cô và purpose này từ lúc nào tổ đến này rồi bạn có mang gì
We'd walk past a woman and she would be up at 4 a.m. to go to the market to buy the chicken to then cook on the barbecue to sell to neighbours.
Hãy biết tiếng mà hay lệ cho anh mình học chung biếng thì hay lệ chỉ cả mà tao vì nó là chỉ là và người ta chỉ là chọn và barbecue ấy mà họ nó đi là ta chủ chỉ cả mà ta thiếu chùa nên thiếu nó cũng ta không có gì.
By 7 o'clock, she was back home looking after her adult child who had severe mental and physical disabilities.
Sige nam ting a hele tamanga cha dam lo ho a chat thei lo ho na kum chat mo ho asin minu ho chu kam ki chi bin hi ma ho cha tho sa sa.
And then under the freeway where we would ride the motorbike, we would pass young women returning from working overnight in the red light district.
Echla china ni ngaki chat ni sa na mun na ni ta sika mata le. Ni ta hung ki le ki na lam pi a kan pal pao me ka to hom ji ni.
Now we may not face such issues here in Australia.
Ita mong din mun ho chu Australia ki tu do mai the ni.
But we're still forced to ask the question, what is our response to these issues of poverty?
Ai in ki ho het diu khat chu i ho chi ma chu ita mong ho i bi ti ka le lo ni ti ba a ti ma ma ji.
What does the gospel of Jesus have to say to these issues?
Ita mong mo na ni ho i gospel i bi ti a se ya i ya ho ka ni.
What does it mean to be God's people in this world today?
Le se chu ma ita mong pa chin ni te ho i na i bi ti ba sa yo dunia to ka ni.
You'll know in your own life, you'll see it where you've come from and the people you've interacted with. And it was the same for us in Bangkok. All people really are looking for. Everyone was longing for this sense of peace and happiness.
Mi ta tan tu nya nang le ki inei cham na mo na inei ta mo mi ta na ho le ni cham na le mo na.
Have I got enough for today?
Dunia hi king sia la ka ni na.
Will I be able to look after my children?
Ka cha te ho zo si hi ka le ko do ni na.
But these issues of poverty are always challenging this sense of peace and contentment.
Ita mong boy na hasan na ho hin. Yo ho lung kim na ai lo ba hai le. Lunga cham na lung mo na inei chi na sa atong khan ni.
The Hebrew word for what we use for peace, you will know, is shalom,
Ai hin yo ni se kam chi tum shalom di kam chan zam ni.
which is more than just this idea of absence of conflict.
Ita boy na lo na i se idea hi boy.
He talks about, it's this concept of wholeness and fullness and abundance.
Ilahi ni pia se nom na ti la hin ke cham kim se le se nai chan thei na di ba ha se nom ni.
And it's referring to our primarily to relationships.
E chi yo ya ko na ho thiam ti ai relationship ki zok thom na ki sam kai na am lo wa ni thei do.
Relationship with God,
Pa chien to yo khot so na.
with ourselves,
Je le e ho
with our neighbours, our family, and the world around
in
us.
ve te ho in su ni te ho.
This idea of shalom is directly speaking to right relationship.
E chi shalom ke di idea to right relationship ki loi khom na an ji ta a pa chi to ki he tu na ki zok khom na ni na ba ne a se nom na ni.
So when we, as Christians, as Baptists, as Baptist Mission Australia, we're asking the question, what is the good news?
Iho Baptist Mission Australia hi now zuya hi tan zui ba hin. Iho in ibiham ichi patinai to good news it to ibiham ho dinga.
How do we live in a way to experience this idea of shalom?
Teka kom shalom ki idea pa iho in ko ba biti la to ki dio ham.
How do we live in a way that the people around us, the world around us, lives with this understanding of shalom?
Echi yo kum ikim veram ho leisi chuma mo en yo ni chi shalom kiti chamkyun sel lum mo na ke pa na chomon ipita nei che yo ti chu ni a yo kom ka ri.
I want to look at and I'm really aware of the time, and I apologise, so I'll just be really sharp. To look at what this understanding of shalom is, we're going to have a look at John chapter 8.
John kum ge chuma be ko mate chi shalom idea adi ta pa I kom na ni pa.
John chapter 8, verse 2 to 11.
John kum ge chang ya pana chang som la khat ka ani. Can you read? Can I read that? Oh,
Maybe Los Angeles Lakers, do you want to come and read it for us?
yes, Sam, please.
Do you want to
Can
read?
you please come out? The Bible kita.
You can read
Kita na. Yeah. English ang sitang na.
English is good.
John chapter 8 verse 2 to 11. John chapter 8, the book of John.
Is that okay?
Yes, it is okay. John chapter 8. Chapter 8 verse 2 to 11, please. Right here. Chapter 2, all the way to 11. Now, chapter 2, get louder, please.
John chapter 8 verse 2 to 11. Now early in the morning he came again to the temple, and all the people came to him, and he sat down and taught them. Then the scribes and the Pharisees brought them to him a woman caught in adultery. And when they had set her in the midst, they had said to him, Teacher, this woman was caught in adultery. In the very act now Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned. But what do you say? This they said, testing him, that they might have something of which to accuse him. But Jesus stooped down and wrote on the ground with his finger, as though he did not hear. So when they continued asking him, he raised himself up and said to them, He who is without sin among you, let him throw a stone at her first. And again he stooped down and wrote on the ground. Then those who heard it, being convicted by their conscience, went out one by one, beginning with the oldest even to the last. And Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. When Jesus had raised himself and saw no one but the woman, he said to her, Woman, where are those accusers of yours? Has no one condemned you? She said, No one, Lord. And Jesus said to her, Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more. Amen.
Thank you so much. That was brilliant. Now you might be asking yourself, what has this passage got to do with this idea of shalom?
Shalom kiti idea hi chi ilai Bible chang sim do na ba ko ibi ka be ka sam kai dam ya na ngai tu mai chen ni.
What does this passage have to say about us as Jesus followers?
Jesus Christ nu zui hi na nu zui vai chi passage chi Bible chang hi ho ibi ho ni chi ba.
What has this passage got to say about us as the Baptist community?
Baptist community hi na nu zui vai chi Bible chang ibi ke ho ni ba.
Well, let's just quickly look at this story from the woman's perspective.
Dunia celaya kisah nubenu komandan tempat jauh di
Can I how would you feel if you'd been placed in this situation? You'd been dragged out by the religious leaders and presented before everyone in the temple.
Bila orang kai te hon nama tunan kai te na mita tak mai tunan tau sa na ibitin na ngai ibitin na dia sedang.
Everyone is looking. Your dignity has been stripped. You have been completely exploited and shamed publicly.
Nama zum so na kuiluta na ki zum so ta sude anak nahi na nalopi na ki le san holo se kai mga unta.
Not only that, you're about to face death.
Tu tham lo heda chi na yam na to ki ding na lai.
Public shaming, the threat of death.
Mipite wala zum la zai ki bo sude chi na ni na e ki koita.
This sense of betrayal by people you thought you could trust.
Natasan ni nga ngai to mi te ho in nang ma natasan ni nga bo to nang ma pero na nei ngam ta.
Alone.
Na chang se na hita.
Be a terrifying experience.
Hita bang na tuwa le. Iza na tu in katasan.
Now I want to contrast what we see from the religious leaders with how Jesus responds.
Pakai Yesu le. Holam kai te hon. Adon bu na de ni ani in ka te ka no me ni.
This passage powerfully illustrates how we're to be invited to live in this world.
Dia ho ipiti chile si man bikin boy man ni. Ya, dia pom jing tadi si. Tidak nak pun.
While the religious leaders sought to condemn the woman, Jesus offered compassion.
Holam kai te ho chun ama chuin puilu na mo na chan sa su gen te ding. Ai bang Yesu Krista tu ngai lu na ko na.
While the religious leaders treated the woman as an object,
Holam kai te ama chu su gen te ding mu te ding a ka ki tung lo khana bo lo ni.
Jesus saw her, who she was,
Pakai Yesu bang tu ama ai na ta amu ini.
saw humanity and her dignity.
Sune mi he ma hi na sune boy na sa ni na zo se amu ini.
While the religious leaders advocated for violence,
Holam kai te ho in achang phen ni in bol ni. Hu na me na bol ni.
Jesus promoted peace.
Pakai Yesu bang chun lumun cham na zo. Amano in ahu ni bi.
While the religious leaders were quick to judge,
Holam kai te ga jalin atu atan no be tu atan ni.
Jesus responded with mercy and wisdom.
Pakai Yesu bang chin thei ta la chin na di set le ngai lu na nei ta in doang ko ni.
While the religious leaders looked to exploit the vulnerable woman,
Holam kai te ho in hita bang mo pa sam na nei ta nei lo na mei chu ma chun ga bong chet nei ho ni mai. A chu mai ta nei na ala no.
Jesus seeks to protect.
Pakai Yesu ba ama no ni a hoi lo thi na ni a ve.
While the religious leaders focused on punishment,
Holam kai te hon god na pi ni a som ni.
Jesus offers forgiveness and a new beginning.
Pakai Yesu ba ngai dang na de ti pat na ai po tha ja te pat te na ni lam pe.
Do we get a sense of the gospel in this story?
Ilai ni gospel kiti adi ta pa tu mu ro thai no.
And the invitation that Jesus is offering each of us to be in the world like He.
Pakai Yesu hita ba ma mi a ko ba ngai lu nei ta a gospel tu ba good news a ha no ko a ko dan ko ni yin lo di ka ta sen.
Now, can I just pick up on this idea of Jesus stooping down?
Ilai pakai Yesu aku ha su ki ka pe di ka di ni.
This idea is an active word of deliberately bending over and lowering yourself.
Ikama hata ta isaya ikun sana.
The simple act of Jesus stooping and writing in the sand or the dirt
Tip be a leisit ala a leisit cuma dia cuma lekha azi juga nak le.
shifts the focus off the woman onto himself.
Ai cina mai nu cung jang tu ama tu isai ama ai bo asu lap dinga hai ta focus api tu abet sana hi.
By stooping down, Jesus symbolically places himself alongside and with the woman.
Tua ai apun hana tu dia bet sam dan nu mai nu to takana khom dan adin mun hon takak ai in akum ha kinim sa nu mai ni din muna ai dinga hi.
He takes upon himself the public humiliation.
Mi pila a zum bona tule zum so na te ama ta jin no akila ahin.
This action presents himself as a lowly one.
Eji atuan dan wali bet sal ama ta jin no kinem sa ta ni pen ahun tu manina bet sa na ni.
And when else are we reminded of when Jesus takes upon himself our shame?
Yo zum na za na te zo si pa ka ni sun ama chuma akip ideal ko din tu sai.
All through his life, Jesus was aligning himself with the vulnerable, with those who had been exploited.
Ajunga mi ho en noi se ta man mo ta bol na ni te ho hi unchon da no do si pa ka ji ama ta akila ni.
He takes upon himself the shame of not just the woman, but
No mai nu zum la za ke se ala ni do ni.
but of the whole world.
Le se pi zum na za na te ho do si akila.
This posture of humility diffused the tension of this situation.
Duni in celaya hin ideal kom de kita bong na kini sa ta a din ala na te ho hi ho ni ideal kom de kan.
And it created an opportunity, an environment for transformation.
Iki khel do the da di ba mi da ki khel do the da di ba hin ko ki khel the di ma hin ta bong hi ho ali na ikila di bin kan.
This picture of God is one of willing to enter into the mess and the brokenness of our world.
Leisen chungai tong boy na hasan na atule abong abaya zeri ti leisen ko man na te wai chi picture mu ba ko na hi on so ipit ilu thai na di ba kila di mun kan si.
It is a picture of a God who wants to be with his people in our brokenness.
E chi ben na wa ko na pachin ta ba ma broken na ho inam na beya hin ko mang te ho la ilu na jiu e bet sa na ka ini.
And to say to us, you are good and you are loved.
Yang wa isai ni na ho mi pa ni bin pachin na ngai chuan ka ngai ti thai di tu bi.
The only other time this word is used is in reference to Paul saying, I'm unworthy to untie your sandals.
Eji tu kam chang to kisaya ki sam kai na abana bet bet hin chu ai le pol ama tan ke hi ka ke lom po na hi ya na kam chang chu isai kom ni ka ni.
It is one of entering into lowliness.
Eji de ba sam te la kini sa ta ilu na ba sa.
Jesus, only ever once does he refer to his nature.
Pachenin ama ani hi na apachen hi na ha le bo ala na ani.
In Matthew 11:29,
Matthew bung som ka chang som ni le po a chu.
take my yoke upon you and learn from me.
Kanam kol hi kila aminang ibin kaya kunin kesin do bin ibin adin hi.
For I am gentle and humble in heart.
Kaya ma kanun yemin kaya kunin kesin bin ibin adin hi.
And you will find rest.
Jadi ma na mo nung mo na na ito
It's the only time Jesus refers to his nature.
Etiai patin ama na nature apatin na ala na kanu akin na hi.
Lowly and humble.
Ini sa de anoy penpena woman na akin mo ni.
Gentle and tender.
Amay nunyem na.
This is a picture we're given of who Jesus is.
Pagka Yesu o yahi akin ito sana.
What does this mean for us today?
Dunia nang lagay din ay jin ibi abe to sa ibi di kila akin ha.
I believe we're invited to be people of humility and gentleness.
Dunia hin kata san jin yang yeho dong ne ta kini sa ta hin ko mana ba ibi hi dunia kata san ni.
How can we actively participate in humility and tenderness?
Ito man ne ta kini sa ta yeho tanong ta ibi izao te yu.
How do we come alongside those who are in pain and suffering?
Ito mga na sa nahin ko mga tolo teho to ibi han kong te yu ham.
Jesus shows us that humility is not passive but active.
Pagka Yesu ni hi na kini sa na hi passive.
Jesus shows us that it takes a risk, requires taking a risk.
Heci bola he la ko na risk amene. Yo lang na pe ko na ding bol na ding tu na ding au.
The world will want to control and dominate through violence.
Leise na hi na hi leise ni wang chun thane na tha na ko nin vai ho de ding angai ko ni.
Jesus says no. To experience shalom in this world, it is about humility and gentleness.
Pati pagka Yesu wang tha man ban ta sin na hi le la ini sa na to nun ne na to swa hi sam na shalom ki ke he.
So just finally, what are the implications for us?
Dunia iwan ko ni na ikilani ikilani pa.
We're invited to pursue humility and gentleness as Jesus invites us to.
Pagka Yesu ay na ko mawang ba tu yung kunya ale ini sa na inunya na kuan kuman ni pati ni.
We're invited to be active in our humility.
Yo ini sa na in tanong ta atan ni hela izao jing di bin e ke ko ni.
In a world that values power, Jesus invites us to let go of it.
Tanay na kila na gamahin pagka Yesu ba iho na na to jing e di.
It invites us to see the shalom, to encounter shalom through this idea of humility and meekness.
Ejikini sa na ako na shalom kiti lumon na chan na ibet sa lo di win ejiko.
What does it mean to be Baptist?
Baptist i lo na pipen kita.
What does it mean for us to follow Jesus?
Yesu Krista is we lo na pipen kita.
Simply to be like Jesus.
Yesu Krista ta na ito na dito.
The Holy Spirit is given to us so that we may live as Jesus does.
Tagaw chi yung suma ka jeng Yesu Krista ta na ito na dito.
I started with the story of stepping over the child, the dog, and passing the young man on the way to
Ji message kan je pa na tu sapang niel tu le uija sapang niel tu le kham nong teo na to ne kham nong mo story in kan pa ne.
We started our response to these needs around us were very simple.
Ijlaya le se kimber ko kimber la kisap na kisap eo tui sei ni.
Together with our neighbours, we started a kids program.
Ida tum sapang hozo se to kisai tong isei community.
Together with our neighbours, we started a social enterprise to create employment for the young men.
Ita te ho tule khano te ho phat chung ro the na di khan to ro the na di bin ibo sa tu khom bin na tong khom ni.
With our Buddhist neighbours, we started a visitation program that were able to support people in their homes with, as they supported the sick and elderly.
Wa na to na tham nei lo pa so zo se ki sa ro the na di bin ti ta mission su an ki bo le ni.
For the young women at risk, we started education programs.
Ita ba nga no mai chapang boy na sa na ne ya ai ko tong kha the ni me ho tong China chen na le kha azul chen na ding in lam ya ana ki tung jo ni.
The gospel impacts our whole being.
Iti gospel tin ya ho po pi hi ai tong kha bi le khe ni.
God has created us as body, as spirit, as mind.
Ba chen ni chi ta sa yi ta sa ka gao ai si ko mai.
And the shalom of God engages in each area of these of our lives.
Iti pa chen na ko na hum chap na chi shalom te lu mon na sun. Ito zo si lu ti ta sa ka gao su ma hen a ka ko min na to ni.
So my prayer is that as you continue to gather together,
Dunia ka tao mo pi ka su ni ke wa ko zing na tan ni.
as you go about your making a life here in Australia,
Australia ka mai no hin ko na ki sa ro ni ba na bol ma bang ba ni.
as you support loved ones back in Mizoram, Manipur, Chin State,
Chin State yan Mizoram and Manipur dong ne ta support na bol sing ma bang ba ni.
that you will have this overwhelming sense that God is with you in the midst of it.
Ito mo ho na bol tin ba hi ya pati na ko na hu chi. Cham na lu mo na chu chu ba na.
That you will be attentive to God restoring relationships with Him, with yourself, and with the world around you.
Is na mo na ba ko na chu pati no chu ko na hu sam chen tin pa chen tin. Chu le na in ye na chu ti no mo zin ta zin no na ki sa du pa ni.
So I pray in God's grace and God's Spirit that you will know Him more and more each day.
Pati mi lu sin na ki ado 1000 ya mi si a hi na khan to che che ni ta sa ka.
Amen.